to the Biz Gone Social podcast. We help entrepreneurs navigate how to get known, get customers, and get the edge over their competition. Here is your host, Lorraine Duncan.
Hey everyone, and welcome. And today's episode 8. Do you believe I have 8 episodes of a podcast right now? And today is the topic of my title is Everyone Has a Story to Tell. So, as I always say, my promise to you is I want to give you just a little bit of verbal caffeine that will energize your social media marketing. And it's going to help you stay social. And I always say this, but I really think it's important because I think everybody out there, don't you really want to be the business that everyone's talking about? Because I know I do. I know I want everybody to be talking about Biz Gone Social. So today I want to go deeper. We've been talking about storytelling. I want to just go a little bit deeper into storytelling. And one of my favorite songs is a song called Need You Now by the songwriter Plum. And the first line of the song always intrigued me, and it always made me think deeper. And basically it was, everybody's got a story to tell. And you know what? We all do. We all have that story to tell. I remember being a little girl and clinging to stories that were told by my family. And interestingly enough, it had a way, it became like family lore, and you looked forward to hearing those stories over and over again. And they kind of brought you together, and these stories were enchanting and they were funny, and I honestly couldn't wait to hear it over and over again. And it almost was like every time they told the story, I got more involved in it, and I felt like I was actually in the story. I also remember when I was a little girl being a Girl Scout and sitting around a campfire. And I remember so vividly we would tell stories, like almost the most craziest stories, but we had that bond together, that Girl Scout bond together. And they would always start out with, remember when so-and-so did this? And then we would just burst out in laughter. Other stories too, like sometimes we would sit around the fire and tell scary stories. They weren't necessarily true, but yet they were definitely scary. And again, it just bonded us together, and we looked forward every time we got together. We looked forward to hearing those same stories over and over again. So my point in telling you about storytelling and these stories when I was a little girl is that all to say is these stories that I heard over and over again as a little girl, they made me feel closer to my family. They made me feel closer to the girls that I hung around with in Girl Scouts. And there's a quote out there from this novel. I can't remember who wrote it. Sharma, I think, was the person who wrote the quote. The book is called Everyone Has a Story. And I really love this quote. It says, everyone has a story. It might or might not be a love story. It can be a story of dreams, friendship, hope, survival, or even death. And every story is worth telling. But more than that, it's worth living. And that is the quote. And to be honest with you, it's one of my favorite quotes. And the book is awesome too. If you ever get a chance to read it, I'll probably put it below in one of my social posts, just the real full name of the person who wrote it. But the name of the book is called Everyone Has a Story. Great, great book. What I'm also trying to bring out here is that the way a brand tells the story is everything, because the purpose of that is we should be binding with this brand. And I mean, I share a lot. I shared in the past, I should say, a lot about some brands that do it well, for instance, with storytelling. And of course, one of my favorites, and I say this, like I know I'm repeating myself, but it was so brilliant, and I keep on thinking about it over and over again. In fact, Subaru. I'm going to just say the word because that brand, every time I see it, makes me think of that story. And this isn't even a current commercial. This happened at least 4 or 5 years ago. But you know the gist of the story. The story is that apparently this car got crashed and it was totally totaled. It was a Subaru and they lived. That was the saying through the whole commercial because the family lived. But everybody was talking about how they couldn't believe this family lived, but they were in a Subaru. And of course, the gist of the whole story is about safety, and Subaru is a safe car for your family. But I get like all teary-eyed about it because this family could have been killed, but it wasn't because every safety feature that could have been put into a Subaru was put into a Subaru. But the long story short is that brands will bring us together. They will through stories, and they are what really is important about the whole thing is how powerful a brand story is. From the earliest days, I say this over and over again, people love stories. So when we see something on social media that is a story, basically you want to think about what it is about that story that brings you together. You know, what is it that makes you want to cling to that brand? And I think of 2 platforms that I really want to kind of talk about here. And just briefly, because I'm a social media gal, and I want to talk about how 2 platforms such as Facebook and Instagram do things so differently when it comes to storytelling. Instagram is very visual. It's Instagram. You know, you go onto it and you're right away mesmerized by the beautiful pictures. And here's the thing is if your story on Instagram is very thoughtfully curated, think about all the pictures put together. You're literally, I think about a lot of like food or nutrition brands out there, you know, that sell a specific health item. It's the way it's curated. You know, it's the way the chocolate is placed. It's the way the wine is on the table. It's the way the fruit is placed in the picture. And it's what happens, it becomes compelling enough that, to be honest, it makes you want to buy. And it's so, if you make this curated visual so customer friendly, basically you're going to leverage that platform so much by letting customers buy instantly on the app itself, the Instagram app itself. And brands can tell a visual story through Instagram and turns it into some motivating factor of the customer that is the customer is basically going to respond and they're going to go right to action. Whereas Facebook lends itself to, I feel, a more authentic storytelling style. It's more my storytelling style. It's, you know, I have this thing called A Gal from Norwalk, Connecticut, and I play that. What am I doing? What's the story I'm telling today? What have I discovered about the world today? And I share it. It's very candid. It's very genuine. It's very authentic. It's a great storytelling style. And it also kind of presents me or the brand, I should say, to the real brand or to the real self. Think about it. Think about those stories out there. Some people do it really well. Some people do it really well. Some people don't do it well at all. But you want to really think about that because, you know, how is that really, really working? How are you able to get your brand out there and through storytelling? And what are the stories you're telling? If you think about a Facebook story, it just kind of sits comfortably on the newsfeed. And then it just goes by people and people are it's not the same with Instagram. You know, and I'm not here to talk to you about like what's better. Is Instagram better or is Facebook better? but it's just what it is what you can relate to better as a business owner and your brand, and how you can tell the story in a way that, again, is going to bind the audience. It's going to bind that person to you. I mean, I think over the years of the Nike commercials, if anybody hasn't ever been really drawn to Nike, then it wasn't a good story for them. But for me, I was always drawn to Nike. And one of the reasons is because I was able to think of that sports story or that sneaker story or the story they tell around their sneaker or their brand wear that they sold. And at the end, it was like when they said, just do it, you would know that instantly, yes, I can do it, and that's what just bonded me. So think about the brands out there that are bonding you to them. Think about how you can brand yourself, how you can tell a story that is going to be so interesting and so great that when they think of that story, they're going to think of your business brand. And here's the deal. If you have any questions about storytelling and how you should be telling your story, feel free to contact me at Lorraine@bizgonesocial.com. And I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Biz Gone Social podcast. Find us on Instagram @BizGoneSocial for extra tips. Check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, stay social.